without any further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Sarah. Maybe a brief introduction, and away we go. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. I am Sarah Bell. I am a cartographer and a data viz designer at Esri, and I work in the professional services cartography lab. So I basically get to help all sorts of cartography projects with our customers, ranging from picking colors to designing entire maps to doing a series of point symbols, anything that has to do with cartography. And I'm also part of the Maps for Adobe team, which is designing a soon to be released in 2.0 plugin for Illustrator, so you can do mapping from Pro to Illustrator. You can do mapping directly inside Illustrator, accessing your ArcGIS Online data, etc. So today, I appreciate all y'all's patience. This is a presentation that I put together, just answering a couple questions, trying to hit all the notes I can in a short period of time in terms of styles in ArcGIS Pro. And I might be covering something or a lot of things that many of you already know. I'm hoping to at least introduce one new thing for all of you, which is creating SVG symbols to use in Pro so that you can get them into your ArcGIS Online map, which if you've worked with point symbols in ArcGIS Online, PNGs are great, but they don't scale very well. And if you use your SVGs, it's really great for web mapping. So there's not a lot of slides. And I also don't know how to advance a slide with everything that's open. Here we go. All right, so here's what to expect. We're gonna start, we're gonna talk about starting a custom style in Pro, saving polygon symbol to your custom style, creating a line symbology and saving that to the style. And we're gonna talk about the different point symbols for 2D maps, which are picture and shape. And I'll show that thing I mentioned before, custom SVG tricks with the graphic design program. I'm gonna be using Adobe Illustrator, but the principle should be the same across any sort of graphic editor program where you can use vector styling. And then I'm gonna show how to save that point layer with those custom SVGs to ArcGIS Online. So now we're gonna switch over to Pro. So just to make sure, I wanna make sure everybody is seeing ArcGIS Pro and how I'm not.
Yep.
Okay, great.
On the screen.
Okay, great. I will put this. All right, there we go. Oh, no, not that. There we go. So this is something that a lot of you probably already know, but if you have, what a style is, a style file or STYLX file now, it is in ArcGIS Pro, is a lot like the style file in ArcMap. It's just a way for you to use and save custom styles so you don't have to create or recreate your styles every time you're making a map. They're shareable, which is great, so I could share it with you know, among my colleagues, so they can have that. If you have a graphic designer in the program who's really good at making styles, then you just have them make it and they share it with the group. So they're very efficient for your workflow. And to make one in Pro, you just say new style and you save that where it works for you. I'm just gonna save it here on the desktop. We'll call this Idaho style, even though most of the data is actually over the state of Washington, because that's what I had immediate access to. But yeah, so Idaho style right on the desktop. I'll click save. And because I saved it while this project is open, it's automatically associated with this project. But I could also access a style just by saying import and then associate it with my project as well. So, alrighty, that was item number 1. Now we're gonna say saving a polygon style to the file. So this is sort of a, I understand the colors aren't super great. This is a, let me make this white so it's easier to see. There we go. Federal lands across the entire country. I try to keep it only to sort of recreation lands, but there's, you know, a couple snuck in there. But let's say I'm making this map for print. The colors wouldn't be too bad for print, maybe not the best for web. But for example, if this is my universal color that I want to use on those print maps for the National Forest Service that is not wilderness, I now just click on that style. I choose the color I want. I'm just going to use that hex value. I'm not going to change anything. Click cancel. And now in this ellipses, and how I got to this symbol window, I guess I kind of did that real quick. Let's figure it out again. So I can go here and click on the actual style in the table of contents, and it will bring up the symbology, which is nice and convenient. But if I hadn't already applied these styles, I could also just right click on the layer name and go to symbology, and it also brings up the symbology page as well. So I'm gonna click that, what did I say, National Forest Service, right here. And when I click on that and I have a window that looks like this in the symbology panel, I can go to this, we call them hamburger menus because it's stacked layers like a burger. Just click that and say save symbol style. Now it's going to default to my favorites because I haven't saved anything to the style I just created yet. Once I do, that will always be what pops up in this until I choose a different style to save something to. And I would give it a name, say national, let's say USFS non-wilderness. And you can give it a category. I guess I would say Forest Service. And you can, you know, go further and give it a key if you wanted to. I would probably, it's kind of cool how it automatically gives you a green tag. I might give it something a little bit more specific to the layer and not the color. But, so there we go, it's saved. So let's say I wanted to apply that style to this national seashore, which you wouldn't do because it's National Park Service, but if you did. So I just click on that to access the national seashore, and I can go to the gallery. And now here I have that Idaho style, and I've only saved one symbol to it. I'll collapse this one and this one and this one, so it's the only one I see. And I go ahead and click that. And I'm not over any national seashore, so you can't see it update, but you can see it update here in the legend. So now, really quickly, I didn't have to go punch in the color. I just clicked on the style thumbnail, and it automatically applied it. So that's cool. And if I'm gonna do like 2 more real quick, so Army Corps of Engineers, we'll save that one, save symbol with style. We'll just say DoD. Category, DoD, and tag DoD. And there it is. So this will only show swatches polygon styles when I'm in the symbology of a polygon. However, you can save to one style file, points, lines, and polygons. Even though you don't see them up here, right here, they're still there. So some people assume that you have to have a line style, a point style, and a polygon style for, for one project, but you don't. You can have them all in one, even though you can't see them all at the same time. Cool. Any questions before we move on to lines? All right. Going once. Here we go. Going on to lines. So I already styled this morning. This is the U.S. highways, pretty much the major highways. I don't know what that one is. Assuming it's not real. And dig into what's going on in this style. Everything is styled the same, single style. Just like ArcMap, you can choose unique values or single style or graduated colors, a lot of other options that you don't have in ArcMap here too. And there, that's what I'm trying to get. So now I'm in the Symbology pane for that. And this is my properties. So here's sort of the classic GIS layers icon. If I go there, you can see that it's actually taking 2 lines to build this highway symbol. So just like you would with the polygons, you can change the color. And I have this bottom one thicker, and then I created a top line. So even though this is where you see the preview stack, where you add it is over here in this wrench or the structure. So I added this second layer by just saying add symbol layer. You add a stroke layer. You could add a marker, which would repeat a bunch of symbols as on your line, which makes sense for some data. And so that's where you would add your second layer in this little structure section of the properties tab. Go back to layer. And again, I can save this to, see, it still has my Idaho style remembered. US highways, transportation, and click OK. So let's do the trails because they're kind of purple, and that's not great. Go to the gallery, and here's that Idaho style. I only see lines because I have dug into the trails now, and I can't see the polygons because it wouldn't make sense to style these with the polygons. So I'm going to say properties. It's a solid stroke. This is kind of interesting, actually. So we say solid stroke. I'm going to do a dotted line. What it means by solid stroke doesn't mean what I think of when I think of solid stroke, which is an unbroken line. It just means the difference between, basically you can think of this as a shape marker in point symbol terms. Picture a stroke, so something made up of imagery, and gradient stroke, which I've never used. Apologies, I won't be able to describe that one to you. Where you would make it a dotted line is right here in the dash effect. And this tells you how many points it draws. This is the template. So 2 points, 6 space. And you can see the preview right here. I zoom in, it kind of gives you this 596% zoom in. I'm going to say 2.2 space. And then you can change the caps and joins. I'm going to keep them rounded, but you can change all that in your point symbols as well. Now it's not that beautiful. It's also still purple. I go to the symbol, and this is where I change that. Make it a little green. And still, it doesn't look that great. That's because I'm zoomed way out. I'm going to zoom in here, but this is rendering that pattern as I told it to render, 2 points with 2-point gap. When I zoom in, although this is a print map, so if I'm going in at the national, this National Park Service level, it makes a lot more sense. So that's why I chose that pattern. I didn't choose it for the very, very small scales. I chose it for the very large scales. All right, so now I would go ahead and save this to my style. Say, trails, transportation. Did it save it? Yep, it did. There we are. I don't know if you can see that. There we are with the trails and the highways line symbology in my new custom style. So now everybody who uses this can have access to the same style without, so all your maps look the same, if that's what you're going for. Any questions before I move on to the SVG and point symbol fun?
I'm wondering, Sarah, do styles also share or save the labeling as well?
That's a good question, and I will show you that. But really quick, let's go to this. So you can actually save a text symbol. which is like a style. And so you're actually saving label classes. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I see. Very good. Thank you.
I'm going to close this. And so now picture and shape marker polygon or point symbols. So I already styled these ones. So again, forgive the, you know, at a small scale, this symbol is going to look quite large. These are hospitals. I'm going to turn off that so it's a little easier to see. Turn on that and maybe even shut this off for now. So these are hospitals in Washington State. Don't quite think it's actually all the hospitals. I created this as an SVG in Illustrator. I'm going to show you how I did that. But before I do that, let's get into the different types of point symbols you can do for 2D. So click on that. Properties. All right. So shape marker is a vector symbol, just like it is an arc map. So as SVG is actually a shape marker as well, which is why they're pretty nice to use in your web maps. A picture marker, just like it sounds, you know, it can be a PNG, GIF, JPEG. PNGs, interlaced PNGs are better if you have than a non-interlaced PNG, and they're better than JPEGs in my opinion. These two, 3D model marker and procedural marker, are for 3D mapping. So they're a little different. And just like with the lines, you can stack, I could recreate this symbol that's an SVG, say, make this have a white background and make the, make it much bigger. There we go, this preview is. And add a layer in this section and, you know, have it be a marker layer or whatever. I could do the letter H if I wanted to, but now I have to resize this symbol. Sorry. There we go. I get the resizing together. Apologies. Oh, here. Anyways, you get the idea. You would stack your symbols like that. But I'm not going to actually create my shape marker this way. I'm going to show really quick how I like to create SVGs, and that's in a graphic editor program. And I already created them, but if you find SVGs online that you're allowed to use, or you like to create your own custom, this is a really nifty way that I do for a lot of our customers. I'll delete this one. So for point symbols, I like to have backgrounds. Here, this is one Illustrator file. I like to have backgrounds that are circles, and I like to have a separate layer for the icons that go inside the circles. For the hospital, this is it. So you can't see the outline because it has a white background, but this is how I created it. I like to have everything in one Illustrator file and then have a separate file for the SVG, because SVGs will remember vectors that are not visible when you create them in Illustrator. So you could have like 100 symbols but only have what you want visible, but the whole symbol has that hefty load of at least knowing about, it's kind of still drawing the invisible symbols, just not applying any symbology. So I just copied this and pasted it into the new SVG, and then I save it as an SVG. Illustrator allows you to do that very easily. The hospital, save, sure. And with this right here, this option is saying convert to outline. If I were to not convert this letter H to an outline, it's gonna look for the font. So actually just want the shape of the letter H. And I click OK. But just behind the scenes of what an SVG is, this is the code that is drawing the SVG. That's what an SVG is. And that's why they're scalable, because it's just fitting this code into whatever space you're telling it to. They're nice and lightweight. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And so in Illustrator, let's save, let's actually do the airports one. Live demo. All right, so here we have airports. I'm happy with how it looks. It's all vector. Click copy, file, new. Going to do a 25 by 25 pixel SVG. And you know, it doesn't really matter because it's scalable, but that's just where I'm going to start, because if I were to create an image or PNGs, I want it to be pretty small. So I'm just going to keep it small, paste it there, and click save as an SVG. Airport. All right, I don't really need to save that. Okay. And now we have an SVG. I'm going to go back to Pro and apply that to the airports. So I go to Gallery. Oops, sorry. I go to Shape Marker. Where do I go? Apologies. Oh, there we go. Appearance. Right below this layer stack. File. I'm going to find that. Find out where I'm saving it. All right, so there's my airport that I just saved. And here's a very tiny preview because it's only 4 point. I'm going to make it 15. Oops, 15 point. And you can see it's bigger, but it doesn't look very crisp. That's not just your screen. That is because it doesn't look very crisp. But in your final layer on the web, it will. So I'm going to click Save and show you how to just get this airports layer into the web so you have SVGs instead of PNGs or images. So right click on that and I'm going to save it. I'll share it to share it as a web layer to my ArcGIS Online account. I'm at Washington demo. And you have different options. I'm going to do a feature class because those are nice to work with. And I'll make it available to everyone in my group. And I could analyze for problems. It's going to say there's not a template set, a feature template set, and that's totally fine. So I'm going to click publish. And while that's working, any questions before we take a look at what happens when I share that?
While it's working on that, Sarah, I'm going to read you some questions that came in on the chat. Let's see. One of the questions, actually several of the questions, asked for a recommendation of open source or free and open source software to create SVGs. I see people are responding with GIMP and Krita. Do you know of any others?
Inkscape, which I believe is also open source, or doesn't not quite as pricey as the Adobe suite, is a good one.
Okay, and then Anne, who's joining us today, also has a question about, do you have a suggestion or recommendation for where to find these original, like airport symbols and airplane symbols, or are you simply looking for, doing a Google search or a Bing search and looking for free and open source type of graphics that way?
So I'm drawing them in Illustrator, sort of just myself. based on, but yeah, I think you can, well, I know for sure you can go online and purchase some. There's probably some free and open source ones, but I'm always tasked with making them myself, so I don't have immediate knowledge of where to find them for free online.
Right. Okay. Thank
And
you.
I'd be happy to share this Illustrator file as a template starter for those people who do have AI, or even I can share the SVGs as sort of a template for people who wanted to get started with that.
Right on. That might be good. And so these have to be SVG. There's no other format that works. Is that correct?
No. So you can do. So if I go back here, let me. That's a great question. I'm back in Illustrator, and what's nice when you do an image is you don't have to create these new files for each image. You can save it, and since it's an image, it doesn't matter what's in your layers. It's just raster. It's not trying to draw things behind the scenes. So if I click save on this, and then so you go to, you can save it as a PNG. If you if you started your file in the right color mode. But so I click save, I go to Photoshop, and I'm going to open this. But you go to any sort of raster graphics editor. I'm using Photoshop, but again, for those people who are looking for free and open source, you probably have a lot more knowledge of it than I do, so you can teach me about that. Again, I gotta remember this file location. Okay.
I didn't want to derail you. I suppose we're ready to look at ArcGIS Online now?
Sure. All right, let's bring that over here. All right, so here's my Washington Airports layer. I'm just gonna go ahead and open that and show you what it looks like in ArcGIS Online. But yeah, the answer is you can save things as rasters. If you're going to save it as if you have a circle shaped symbol, PNGs are my recommended file format, because you can like shave off those corners instead of having a weird white background. Okay, oh, there, great. So hope it looks crisp for you. It's crisp for me, much more than it was in the rendering preview in Pro. You even get, just like you would with any other data layer, you get access to the features in that, the fields in that feature layer. And yeah, that's it. It's a very, very quick and simple demo of the SVGs, but I find that my customers prefer the SVGs more and more frequently than the raster point symbols. So this is one really great way to do that. And if you wanted to do, I like to, if I were to do the same thing with the line data or even the polygon data, that federal lands layer or the highways layer, I might consider exporting it as a vector tile layer, which renders really crisp and fast, unless you needed to access the data behind the layer. But that was my
very
demo
good
for y'all.
Yeah, that's excellent. There's a lot of great information there, and actually there's quite a few questions that are still coming in.
Oh.